Hey pushers, welcome to our first online lecture. We'll be covering real shortly today Key Concept 1.3. And Key Concept 1.3 is contacts among Native Americans, Africans, and Europeans challenge the worldviews of each group. Specifically, we'll be focusing on the sub-concepts of with little experience dealing with people who were different from themselves, Spanish and Portuguese explorers poorly understood the native peoples they encountered in the Americas, leading to debates over how Native Americans should be treated and how civilized these groups were compared to European standards. And also, many Europeans developed a belief in white superiority to justify their subjugation of Africans and Native Americans using several different rationales. Okay? So real quickly, just some background here. We kind of left off with the Columbian Exchange, and we also kind of left off with the common knowledge that Columbus um, lands in the Caribbean in the 1490s, and shortly after Columbus lands in the Caribbean, the rumors spread that there's these massive empires in the interior of Mexico and South America, and conquistadors, basically Spanish conquistadors, flood to the New World, and they basically start the process of conquering these established empires. Okay, now because of the Columbian Exchange, we know that disease plays a major factor in the defeat of the Native Americans. Okay, specifically the Aztecs and the Inca. The one thing to note about the Aztecs, though, is that they were not nice people. I'm sure we've all kind of heard about the sacrificing of people on the temples and ripping out their hearts. But basically, the Aztecs demanded tribute from the surrounding Native American tribes, and you had to basically give the Aztecs the tributes in order to basically not get attacked by the Aztecs. So there was a lot of harsh feelings towards the Aztecs by the surrounding tribes, and so Cortez, one of the conquistadors, basically takes advantage of that, and with the help of smallpox, he's able to conquer the Aztecs, and that's modern day Mexico, and that will become kind of the center of the Spanish Empire in the New World. Okay? Now, the thing about the Spanish taking over is that the people of Mexico and the region were basically used to being ruled and exploited, first by the Aztecs, and the Spanish basically just replaced the Aztecs with themselves. Okay? Now, once the Spanish do take over, there is a very strict social hierarchy that is established. Okay, on the top of that social hierarchy are purebred Spaniards, people that are born in Spain. We then have the development of Creoles, um, people that are born in New Spain. So these are people who are we consider pureblood Spaniards. However, they were born in New Spain. We also see a sizable population called mestizos, basically growing, and mestizos are basically people who are Spanish and Native American, and today that makes up about 60% of Mexico. Okay, because mainly men came over to the New World, there really wasn't a lot of Spanish women. So as a result, the Spanish men, wanted to have families, obviously, and so they basically married with the native populations. In fact, many of the conquistadors were given three native women to make their wives. Okay, and then on the bottom we have Native Americans and enslaved persons. Once the conquistadors are done with the Aztecs and the Inca, they're able to set up I mispronounced it. Encomiendas, excuse me. And these are basically gigantic estates where they're able to exploit the Native Americans, basically make them into slave labor, and they're able to basically extract an enormous amount of wealth out of Latin America. Especially in South America, we see lots of gold and silver mines that are basically enriching the Spanish and transforming the European economy into more of a capitalist society because of all that wealth flowing in through there. Okay. Eventually, this system does fall apart. Many Catholics, like De las Casas, protest the treatment of Native Americans and basically argue that they deserve the same treatment as Native Americans. Okay. Plus, as the Spaniards begin to intermarry with Native Americans, we do have that large mestizo population developing, and these people were exempt from the encomiendas system. Okay, because of that, we see as the Native American population dwindles or blends into the Spanish population, we see the African slave trade replacing that. Okay, and African slaves are now brought over from mainly Western Africa to basically meet the needs on the Spanish plantations and mines and such. Okay. Now, the other thing the Spanish are known for doing is harvesting souls. Okay, the Spanish definitely came over for gold. They definitely came over for glory, but they were also incredibly religious. And you should know that during this time, there is a fierce competition between Protestant nations and Catholic nations, and so it was almost like a competition to convert the souls. Okay, what you see here on this page is basically what the Spanish would read Native American populations. Okay, and basically they would read it, and the gist of it basically says that if you don't accept our God, who is of course the true God, we have the right to essentially harm you in any way we want, treat you like crap, make you into our slaves, and just basically exploit you. So if you don't convert, we're just going to take you over. Okay? And so we see an intense effort by the Spanish to establish their religion in the New World, and we see a mission system, like I said, being spread throughout North America. Okay, and many of the cities in Southwest America today were founded as these mission cities. For instance, Santa Fe and Los Angeles. As just a couple of examples. Okay, now many of the Native Americans do convert, fairly quickly. But we also see many Native Americans resist. In fact, the Pueblo Indians in what is now, modern-day New Mexico, these guys actually revolt against the Spanish, who are trying to suppress their native practices and make them adopt these Christian practices. Okay, and during this Pueblo revolt, 400 Spaniards are killed, and 2,000 settlers are basically forced out of New Mexico. And it took Spain about 12 years to take New Mexico back. So we do see Native Americans resisting, this attack on their culture, but ultimately, obviously, if you look at Mexico today, it is perhaps one of the most Catholic regions in the world. In fact, most of the regions the Spanish took over, are some of the most religious Catholics you will find in the world. Okay, so clearly, Native Americans, one of the effects that they had because of contact was a major change in their worldviews. And while some resisted that, eventually there was kind of the adoption of Catholicism in the New World. Okay, so that's an important thing to note. All right, and kind of wrapping it up, over the past week or so, we've kind of had our fun bashing the Spanish and saying how awful they are. But it is important to note that this is kind of known as the Black Legend, this idea that the Spanish were just absolutely terrible. As the painting in the top right of that slide shows you, it shows a Spanish conquistador basically feeding Native American babies to their dogs. Okay? And while that, some say that actually might have happened, it is important to note that the Spanish did do horrible things. I would say probably at first. But the truth is, the Spanish did achieve monumental accomplishments. They had a massive empire that survived for hundreds of years. And I think the other important thing, too, is that of all the European empires that were established in the New World, it is really only the Spanish that merge with the Native Americans and create a very unique blend of Old and New World cultures. Okay, like I already said, if you look at Mexico today, the majority of the Mexican population is basically part Spanish and part Native American. Okay, and so like I said, we do see this blend of Old World and New World. Okay, whereas other Europeans that come over to the New World, like the English, for instance, and soon the Americans, they want absolutely nothing to do with the Native Americans, and the Native Americans are constantly being pushed away. And in some cases simply just exterminated. Okay. However, the Spanish eventually do, like I said, just kind of merge into this Native American culture and create something that is truly unique. So, in that sense, I think we need to take that into consideration and not give the Spanish a pass on their treatment of Native Americans, but to also understand that, you know, they do something that is unique compared to the other European powers that do come to the New World. Okay? All right, guys, that's it for today. So there's just, like I said, some real quick background on the Spanish Empire that is created in the New World. Thanks, guys.